Hello. Good evening, everyone. Hello, Sean. Hello, Mark.
Good afternoon,
boys. How are we going?
It is Friday Night Live, our favorite time of the week. It's the end of the week. Well, it's almost the end of the week. For us, we've got a couple of meetings tomorrow with clients. That's going to be good. Sean, how's your week been?
It's been chaotic. Chaotic's always the response that I'm going to give you, but chaotic in a good way.
Chaotic in a good way. That's good.
I wasn't feeling too well earlier in the week, but I'm much better now.
Oh, that's good, Sean. What happened? Or do we not want to talk about it on camera? We'll leave it off camera.
Off camera, there's a good story behind it.
Fine. For the viewers who want to know, sign here. No, I'm just joking.
Sign here, yes, thank you very much.
Mark, what about yourself? Good evening, sir. Welcome. How's your week been?
It has been very good.
That's awesome.
We'll leave it at that. It's been good. I wasn't sick, but it was sick.
We were fully sick. In fact, you and I had a pretty good chat yesterday. That was fun. That was like, I think Mark and I were like communicating for a fair bit. That was really fun.
It was late night lovers last night.
It was so good, guys. Actually, you know what? Funnily enough, even though we're in this digital era, I think the team is we're more connected than ever, which is excellent. Anyway, before I blabber on and fill in space while our viewers jump on, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Friday Night Live. I've got Sean Flight, I've got Marc and Keshav. We are here happy on a Friday, and we're happy to share this time with you. So today's topic is going to be fear. What goes wrong? What are your actual fears and how to plan for them? So let's talk about it today. People have lots and lots of ideas, lots and lots of fears, some real, some not. When it comes to property ownership, whether you're buying your own home, whether you're buying an investment property, what happens, Sean, if I don't get a tenant? What happens if this happens? What happens if I lose my job? There's so many questions. We're going to answer them all today. Now, if you are coming back every week on week, thank you very much for your support. We love you. Welcome home. Give us a like, give us a shout out, share this video to other people who would benefit from it. And if this is your first time, welcome. We are very, very excited to have you. Join us every Friday. If you can't, watch it on replay. In fact, if you're watching it live, type in a quick live wherever you're watching it. And if you're watching it on replay, type in a quick replay so we can see how many people watch it live and how many people watch it on replay. Now, let's get started, guys. So again, tonight's topic is quite juicy. It's about people's fears, some real, some not, when it comes to the world of investment or property ownership. Now, I've broken these fears into 4 sections, okay? The first is the planning part of buying a property. Second is the pre-purchase part of buying a property. Third is the during the purchase part of the property. And fourth is after the purchase, after the fact. You finally bought the property, you've celebrated, you've got the keys, and now what are the challenges that you are scared of? Now, if there's something that I don't cover for you guys today, something that we didn't speak about, something that you want us to discuss, leave it in the comments for us. Absolutely, because we will try and cover it in our future videos. So before we delay it any further, let's talk about the planning part. So again, Sean and Mark, rules of the game. I'm going to go section by section, and I'm going to just outline a few things. I would love to hear your perspectives, the stories around these things, and we'll move forward step by step, because tonight I really want to educate my viewers on the entire process, where the risks are, and how very, very easily these risks can be mitigated if you have the right team, the right plan, and the understanding of these risks. So let's get started. So the planning part. First part, the actual plan. So Sean, this question's for you. When often, especially for first-home buyers, and now in Sydney, the biggest question is, should I buy my own home? Should I buy an investment? And again, there's no right or wrong. There's no debate here. There's no biases here. Now, when someone's putting a plan together, what are the things they should be thinking about when even before they think about buying a property? What should be a part of your planning phase?
Forward thinking, 100%. Forward and future thinking first and foremost. Too many people in the world have short-sighted vision where they plan for today. They plan for today's goals, today's dreams, today's wants. Where I see so many investors going wrong is 100% a lack of forward planning. So here's the weird thing, right? It's time to buy a home. Husband and wife, or husband and wife, or something and something decide to go to the bank. You go to the bank, and then guess what? You combine income A, you combine income B, and you ask the banker, hey, how much can I borrow? The banker says you can borrow $2.5 million. Now, guess what partner A and partner B decide to do in today's culture? Jump online and go searching for a house worth, you guessed it, $2.5 million. No one ever told us to be able to do this growing up. No one ever told us this in university, right? You're just told that, okay, cool, what can we borrow means that this is what we should be borrowing. But no one thinks about what my capacity is today is not my capacity tomorrow. So after I get my first asset, how can I keep buying a property? I was having a chat with a very distressed investor the other night. Mark linked me up with someone excellent who is a business owner. They are already an investor. And they came to the shocking realization that, wait a second, so you mean to say that even if I have deposits for my investment properties, it doesn't mean that I can buy investment properties? They got hit on the head with a nail called serviceability.
It's that thing that bites us all, doesn't it?
Exactly. So, I know there's a lot of groups out there that talk about, we'll help you do 6, we'll help you do 7, we'll help you do 10 investment properties. Garbage. If you really want a team to help you do your 6, 7, 10, it starts with proper planning. The saying that I love I steal it from Patrick Bet-David all the time is, proper preparation prevents poor performance. So all I would say to people that go wrong in the planning phase is definitely plan with a future goal in mind, not just for today, but for 5 years, 6 years, and 7 years. And for most people, if buying a home first is going to drain you out of all your capacity to do anything outside, and then you're only making a move in 20 years, of course, don't buy the home. If buying the home is what will make you happy for 20 years straight, even if it means you have no financial literacy on the outside beyond that, no tax-saving vehicle outside, then by all means, go for it. But the new age of trendsetters has kicked in. The rent investors are taking over, and the Sydney wealth is being dispersed.
100%, absolutely 100%. Now,
you bumped me up. I feel like I'm in a movie with you and Mark, actually.
Every day is a movie with us.
It really is. It really is. Really well said, Sean. I'm going to bring Mark in here in a second. And for me, look, the first part of planning is it comes down, very, very rightly said by you, it comes down to finance, okay? And there's a very important decision to be made, and why people talk about rent vesting and freedom and so on and so forth. So in the example of, say, a $1 million property or a $2 million property or whatever it is, I look at it this way. So what are going to be my monthly commitments on this property? And if I'm borrowing at ones and twos, can I still afford to pay this at 4s and 5s? One. And can I live in the same asset for less money and rent it instead, right? So that's the argument here. So in my head, there have been a lot of crossroads in my life where I have actually been in points where I've rented out my principal place of residence, because it made so much more sense, and rented another place. And I'll give you an example. So now to buy a decent home, say in a decent suburb, and if you go in with a 10% deposit, you worked really hard, you're looking at your mortgage anywhere between the scale of $5,000 a month to up to $15,000 a month, depending whether you buy 900,000, 1.2, 1.6, 1.8, whatever it might be, and onwards, so on. That's the sort of space you're in. Usually the $1 million home, you don't get much for $1 million today, but that's a huge section of the population. Now, what I find very troubling is that I can be living in a $3 million house or a $2 million house for $1,000 a week or $1,200 a week or whatever. So that's $6,000 instead of 15. And the other $6,000 that I have, that extra money that is left over, can I put that in places that helps me bring my tax back, that is growing in value? I completely understand just renting is a waste of money. I respect that if you have no assets. Don't extend yourself and rent like this ridiculous property which you can't afford. But is there a possibility that you're tying yourself in? And Mark, you and I spoke about this last night, and often I hear this argument of, oh, what if I don't get a tenant? What if I lose something, right? Now, the likelihood of you not getting a tenant is very little in a market like this, especially if you know where you're buying. Now, if you go in the middle of whoop whoop and buy some speculative real estate, God bless you. But if you stick to the fundamentals that we teach our clients, you should be fine. Now, worst case scenario, the property's empty for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 months, even. That's $6,000. But think about this. People sign loan documents on $1 million, $2 million mortgages that they are liable for. And every single cent, sometimes in a household, one person is only going to work to pay the mortgage. Like literally one whole person's income goes to pay the mortgage, and they're just 1 month or 1 fortnight away from their partner or themselves falling sick to not be able to buy a mortgage. So when people come and say to me, they go, I'm planning this, and my broker said I could borrow 1.25. I've offered this, and they're stretching themselves and tying themselves in a 30-year mortgage that they can't afford. And I asked myself this, mate, you are capping yourself. You're never going to have any money to invest, to save. And you're going to be paying a mortgage for 30 years. You're going to have 0 tax deductions. You'll be out of pocket $2.5, $3 million, only being forced to sell this house that you've tried so hard to pay off. I pretty much feel most people in Sydney will never be able to pay off their homes because they don't understand the commitments they've gone into unless your income goes up substantially. So when it comes to finance, Sean rightly said, you said all starts with finance and how you really utilize your money. Now, Mark, in the planning phase, how important it is to get the right information from the right people.
You know what, on the back end of what we've just discussed, right, in regards to the planning, those that didn't plan, you'll notice in the market at the moment, there's a big trend on seniors living, right? Developers are going down the route of, of seniors living. Now, it's not in every single area, but it is a trend that's popping up in more affluent areas. Now, if we notice seniors living, it's always a downsize into a smaller dwelling, all right? Majority of the time, let's use a matured retired couple, let's say in Vaucluse, and that live on maybe, I don't know, let's just call it 700 square meter house, maybe on a bit of a tiered type of slope there. So it's getting a bit annoying up and down the stairs, and we're getting older now. So we want less of that. We want one flat area. So we look at one of these downsized brand new apartments that may be, let's say, $2 or $3 million less, hypothetically, than what the property was that we sold for. So yes, you're right. We sell and we downsize. What I'm starting to understand, and I mean, I'm sure there's probably going to be people out there that tell me, I'm wrong, but what my personal impression is that most of these people that are buying into seniors living, obviously they're a specific age and above, probably never had a planning, and they only just got lucky by securing a certain amount of equity in that period of time. Now, they didn't plan for that. No one can plan for the amount of equity you have on any form of portfolio. We can all speculate, and we can look at it conservatively, or we can look at it aggressively. But in today's market, especially this is in Sydney, obviously, we're seeing a lot of these pop up. Now, the only people that move in now are people that obviously downsize, and then they seem to have this maybe a $1 million, or even let's just call it $500,000 to $1 million worth of expendable cash, which, by most people's standards, if they are, let's say, above the age of 65, is probably enough to live on quite comfortably for the next 20 odd years. If we just do it on some math, 20 years, right? That's $100,000 a year. To be earning that passively, or to be able to spend that passively in Sydney, I think you're doing all right. I think you're doing all right. So looking at that, I think there's a lot of people out there in today's day and age, whether they're from previous generations that are downsizing, or whether it's these new generations, as Sean mentioned as well, there's a lack of planning going on now. And I think that is key to anything we do in life, without getting too deep into that. And I hope I'm answering the question, because I'm actually losing track of what the question was.
You are, because these people have not had the right, when I say team, I don't mean like a sports team. Like when you research any successful person, doesn't matter who it is, right? The outcome of success, like you said, these people didn't have a plan. They've downsized, and by default, somehow they've lived in a property for 20, 30, 40 years, happened to be an affluent suburb. God bless them. If it didn't, you're screwed. So you're pretty much leaving it to chance, right? Now, these people have had to downsize. They're lucky enough to have cash. Some people don't. And all of this comes down to the team part. So that's where my question came from is, do people get the right teams behind them? And when I say team, do you have the right accountant? Do you have the right financial planner? Do they actually have your back? Do they truly have your back? And are they giving you information that is empowering you or depowering you? Right? And again, I'm not knocking on any profession. They're good players and bad players in every industry, 100%. But sometimes when I sit with people, even close friends and family, and they go, mate, you've done well, you've got investments, you're doing this and you're doing that, you do this for work. This is what my accountant said to me, or this is what my financial planner said to me. And I sometimes look at that and not to poke holes. I just go, mate, you tell me, how's this going to serve you in the short term or long term? This is a very generic, go figure it out, put $10 in, 20 bottle there, and manage your risk. Mate, you're not an Excel sheet, you're a human being. You know exactly where your life is headed. You know what you have planned for yourself. This is a very generic understanding. And like, I'll give you a small example. Let me get specific here. So I had a very good friend. He's still my friend. And he, at the time, his missus was pregnant and he had bought an investment property, and we unfortunately he hadn't run it by me. He bought it anyway. Long story short, his missus was on annual leave. The company went bust. She was completely unemployed. He was on a single income, and then something happened with his work, so on and so forth. And then he found work, so on and so forth. And he went to his accountant and said, mate, like, you know, you get tax benefits from property, so on and so forth, but I can't wait till the end of the year. And the accountant went, oh, okay. Oh, but you know. And I'm like, mate, why did he not tell you to do a tax variation a form? And he goes, what? A what form? I said, a tax variation form. Your accountant can fill out a form and give it to your employer, which will adjust your income and you will get more back. The trade-off is, yes, you don't get a lump sum in the end, but right now in your situation, every dollar counts. Why haven't you rung up? Oh, the broker said it's hard. Blah. I said, mate, you can pick up the phone and tell the bank you're going through hardship. They might pause it or switch to interest payments or give you adjusted payments for 6 months, 1 year if required. And they will go from there. The things you can do. And what people don't understand is real estate market is a $9 trillion market, $9 trillion market. So when these idiots come up and say, oh, the market is going to wipe out by 30, 40, 50%, you're saying $3 to $4 trillion of Australia's economy is going to disappear. And the government's just going to sit there and be like, oh, so what? Do you think that's how our government works? It doesn't. So for me, I just feel a lot of times in the planning phase, people think they're going to an accountant, they're going to a financial planner, they're doing this and doing that. The reality is their information relevant to you? Is it serving you? Is it tailored to you? Because your circumstances, the economy can change consistently, right? So when you're planning for stuff, like Sean said, are you looking towards the future? Okay, I'm in this house. Every time I buy a property, I ask myself this: what is my exit plan? Worst case scenario, if I sold it in 5 years, how much would I have to pay in capital gains tax? If I live in it for the next 5 years, or for the next 10 years, or the next 15 years, am I okay to pay so much? And if I'm paying so much, would I have any spare cash flow left over for rainy days or to invest? Because if I can't invest and if I can't do other things, then I've got nothing in retirement. I'm getting nothing back in tax. And it really, and I might seem a little passionate here, but it really annoys me when I see people trust in titles and they don't get the answers they want. So guys, if you're taking away,
you know what? Sorry, Kesh, to cut in, but another thing as well, lawyers and accountants are trusted advisors, or let's say solicitors and accountants. They are our trusted advisors. If you are not into investing or whatever it may be, most people, as let's just say a mum and dad investor or just a mum and dad in general, has some form of relationship with an accountant. maybe or maybe not a solicitor, but let's just keep the solicitor out of it for now. Right, with the accountant, usually the most trusted type of accountants are usually, again, for mum and dad type of investors, someone with grey hair, age, experience, right? But unfortunately, they're also used to doing things an old way as well, right? So, they could be a tax accountant that specializes really well in taxes for mum and dads that work PAYG and, own their own home and maybe have one property. But are they experienced for someone with a portfolio of 6 or 7 properties? Maybe, maybe not. Like you said, are they explaining, to their clients, you can do basically going above and beyond. That is a different thing. When you've got you've got to understand that it's natural for a human being to understand that when you develop a lot of, let's say, return business, why would you go out and hunt more? You're comfortable. You're being fed. Right, so the accountant's not going. Let's use the accountant as the example. They're not going to go out and do further due diligence on your behalf if that means they need to stay back an extra 2-3 hours to search around a bit more for you. I mean, you're just one of their many clients, and if it's easy business just doing your tax return, seeing you once or twice a year and making $1,000 out of you across a whole year, times that by 200, 300, 400 clients or whatever it may be, right? What makes you so special to get so much good advice as well? And that's why it's super important. I've seen this time and time again. I'm sure you guys have seen it just as much, where, people are unfortunately and unintentionally getting screwed by their own team, right? Not because they're trying to screw them, but because they're just being lazy. And
100%.
That kills a lot of deals as well for people.
And again, Sean, I'd jump in here, and I love your insights in here. So I look at a team like this. So one professional, just an accountant, just a financial planner, just a property guy, just a broker is not enough. There has to be a synergy. So the way I look at it is this. This is my body. If my right hand is my broker, my left hand is my finance, my right leg is my financial planner, my left leg is the accountant, and maybe the rest of my body is due diligence. So the problem here is not in the professional. The problem here is there's no synergy between the professionals for this one individual. And at JR, last night, for example, is an example, and this is guys, hand on my heart, I'm not plugging this. This is not because of our business. This genuinely, last night, hand on my heart, I was on, our head of acquisitions was on, Mark was on, at 8 o'clock at night, and we saved a woman $500,000 who was getting forced to buy a dud property by the real estate agent, and she's in between jobs, and she was told to buy a property because she got approval while she's switching jobs, and she's switching jobs to a completely different industry. What that risks her, if the bank found out, they could have literally taken back the approval. She could have lost her 10% deposit, if not more, on this deal, right? And we literally, by her luck, or I don't know what it was, Mark, you saved her. Mark put her in front of us at 8 o'clock at night. I'm reading her notes. I had a chat, and I just went through all of this. We got Vivian on. She would have made a $500,000 mistake because she had no one advising her about property, the broker pushing her, and the broker and the real estate aren't talking because the broker wants to get the deal across because he'll get paid. Hey, I've done all this paperwork. I need this deal to go across so I get paid. The real estate is trying to push her so I get paid. No one cared about, she's 52 years old.
Wow.
People not have a heart.
Wow.
Right? So this is what I'm talking about. So it's not about the property. Often it's us. Are you getting the right information? Now, going ahead in the planning phase before we spend too much time, and then we'll go through the other stuff, I think it's very, very important to get the right information and the relevant information. And I'll give you an example here. And Sean, I love a little input from you. So let me give you an example of Sydney. So Cherry Brook got a metro station. So let me explain this phenomenon, okay? Cherry Brook got a metro station, but West Pennant Hills has always been more expensive than Cherry Brook, okay? And there's this long-standing argument, oh, train station and this, blah, 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 infrastructure, da, da, da. What people don't understand is infrastructure important. 100% it is. Absolutely. No one's denying that. Is that our train stations and hospitals the only thing that make properties grow? No. What explains the phenomena of Bella Vista versus Glenwood? They're a street apart. Why are houses in Bella Vista selling for $3 million? Right? So, and Kings Langley, which is like another street from Glenwood, selling for 900 million. What explains that phenomena? And Sean, why should someone really understand what is the right information and what part of that information is relevant? Because I feel a lot of people out there just spit out information with no logic, say, hey, there's a train station here, there's a park here. Great, mate. There's a train station and a park and out of 700 suburbs and 400 of them. So big whoop.
You know, it's amazing. It's exactly like what you described. Right arm is your broker, left arm is your strategist, right leg is the accountant, left leg is the financial planner. Guess what? Everyone's missing. Everyone's missing a head. No one has a head. That's what they're all missing. So they're all just out there thinking about, oh, this stat, that stat, I've got to make this work, I've got to make that work. You won't believe it. I've got a really funny story. There's this guy with EY that I was working with recently. And about maybe a year ago, there was someone from Salesforce I was working with as well. And these are guys that have lived and worked in Sydney for a number of years, so they already know about Sydney, but they live in and around the city, right? And in both of these conversations, during their planning phases, they come out with this classic that I love, which is, hey, why don't we just why don't we just go really far away and like buy a nice house with an acre backyard in Balcombe Hills or Castle Hill? And I said, yeah, sure, but we can do that, but your requirements are not really just there yet for what you can actually do based on your financial setting. And here's the thing, right? They said, I can pull some strings, I can increase my budget. I said, what can you increase your budget to? They said, I can increase my budget from 700K to 800K. For an acre backyard in either Balcombe Hills, Castle Hill, or Box Hill. An acre, and this was just last year, and the other conversation was today. Oh my goodness. So a lot of people are operating where they've got no general knowledge of how things are. And I understand that you need a little bit of experience before you do get some knowledge. But when you're looking at going back to, making those moving parts part of the deal-making process, everyone's just got to ask themselves this question, which is, what the right team is going to be able to deliver for you is understanding that location is important, but location is not everything. Infrastructure is important, but infrastructure is not everything. When you factor in all of those key metrics, the juice
combination.
Exactly, the combination, but as well as primary demographic. What's the moving in demographic? What's the micro demographic? What's the affluence score? Right? You have such a great way of explaining to people the natural process of gentrification of an area. All those metrics.
That's my favorite.
Exactly.
Yield variation.
Oh my goodness, we're on a roll. Yield variation. Everyone who's listening here, sign right now because there's a beautiful.
For everyone who's listening, I've got a I've bored Sean to death. I geek out on this stuff. I've got a 8-page, like a really, really detailed research document that we follow within the team to do this. Actually, Sean, I'm going to share my screen very quickly. This is ad hoc because I got super curious on what you were saying. And I'm just going to share Balcombe Hills if everyone can see that. Are you able to see that?
Yeah.
So let's look at Balcombe Hills. And this is my tip to you guys. Go on realestate.com, okay? Go on the sold section, especially in established suburbs, okay? You'll get the most established. If the suburb's been there for 10, 15 years, that's the best way to look at prices. Go on sold section and look at what is sold in the last week. Especially in a hot market, doesn't matter what happened 2 weeks ago. What is happening today?
Yeah, that
3, 2, and 4
really good.
Has sold for 854. So decent block for 1.54 million. I can guarantee you, the person who's bought this has not bought it for yield because that piece of shit will not rent for $400 a week. Okay, this person has pretty much bought it to rent it out, lodge a DA, and either do a knockdown rebuild or do some other thing with this property. Okay, this is a connected duplex townhouse. Okay, boundaries. That's what the image is on the angle, right? That's what real estate agents are meant to do. Make it look cool. That sold for $1 million. This is 1.3 million. Bro, like this is 1.7 million. It's a split level home. This one is 1.73 million, 322 on a 740 block, 1.4 million, and I can keep going on. So for our viewers today, if you genuinely are looking at established suburbs, that's what you want to do. And Sean, this is not you. I sat with someone the other day, and I appreciate it. I find sometimes there are dreamers out there. I find it surprising people haven't even jumped into realestate.com, because when people go look at the buying part, I don't care what they're buying them for, because anyone can ask for anything, right? The buying part is not, someone can advertise a property for $400,000. There's so many of these guys do it. $400,000 house and land. By the time you do your contracts, you paid $650 for the bloody thing.
Exactly.
Right?
And
these are the, so that's the retail model. The retail model for new homes is to advertise a really, really cheap price and then upsell the customer. Okay. And the other bit, when you're looking at more established suburbs, you're looking at newer homes, older homes, then you're looking at someone who's pricing them right enough to build competition, and they're going to sell 20, 30, 40% above it. So when you're looking at something, guys, it's very, very important to understand, am I willing to stretch myself on the day? And if I am, is it worth it? And often the most annoying thing for me is that if someone had $1.5 million and bought that 3-bedroom house thinking I'll be a developer, even if that property became $2 million, you had no servicing, you can't do shit with it. You'll have to sell it and start again. If you sell it, then what do you buy? Because everything else has moved up. You're not going to be sitting in an economy where your suburb went up and everything else went down. Mate, this is not a fairy tale. Go watch Harry Potter.
The number of people that want to be developers on $1 million budget is just insane.
Oh, bro, it's a joke. So be very, very clear with your plan. If you're not sure how to build a plan, I actually did a very detailed webinar. If you want a copy of the webinar, you want to watch it live, leave us a comment wherever you're watching this, and I will make sure someone from the team reaches out to you and sends you a copy. I take you through a step-by-step process on how you can actually build a portfolio and how to plan. There's my shameless plug. Now pre-purchase, okay? Pre-purchase, I need people to be clear about the type of property, the age of the property, the contract type, finance, purchasing terms, and buyer protection. So, Sean, pre-purchase, what sort of things can go wrong for someone, and how does one protect themselves? And how serious is it?
Sure. So a number of things that can go wrong would be pre-purchases. Is funnily enough, there's a period of usually an exchange process. Depending on which state you operate in, there's a variety of different processes you can follow. So you usually sometimes exchange with finance or exchange without finance. But what we try and do is work out a way where, for example, if you've got subject to finance 21 days, sometimes it can go wrong because vendors in a hot market, which is typically right now, love to enforce timeframes on contracts. So when vendors love enforcing timeframes, you could literally be a day away from getting your formal finance approval. But if you tick over that finance date, you're getting your contract pulled from you with your deposit generally kept. So it is a bit of a ruthless market out there that can go wrong pre-purchase. That's why having a solid team that understands the game really well is vital in a market like this.
Amen.
But beyond that, you're getting a whole bunch of situations like sometimes people get freaked out about whether it's valuations, whether it's, let's say, sometimes if it's an off-the-plan pre-contract sort of thing, you get situations where sometimes the wrong social circles get in your ear about the wrong things. The number of people that I've heard that rely on their friends to tell them whether an investment location is good is driving me nuts. Especially friends that are not just multi-million dollar friends. These are your barbecue friends who their net worth is their Kenworth. That's it.
Can I just jump in here very, very quickly? And this buyers beware moment for me. And I want to say something about the friends bit, okay? And sometimes they mean good and they don't mean you any harm. So I'll give you a very small example in Sydney. So there was a time where another very close, not friend, family friend, call him a cousin if you will, didn't have a very strong budget, but I was adamant, just very young, and I was adamant at the time. He goes, mate, I really want to be buying something. So his parents live in the inner west, and he wanted to buy something in the inner west. The other
inner west like Campsie, inner west like Campsie, or inner west?
No, like Five Dock, Haberfield, like Leichhardt, nice inner west.
The real inner west.
The real inner west. I'm going to be politically correct here. Let's just leave it at that. So I had a conversation with him. He had a really limited budget. He needed a gold property for kicking off his portfolio. He was 23, 24 at the time, living with mum and dad, hustled, mate. Like, he's been saving since he's 16 years old. And I said to him, mate, look, where you're at the moment, these are a few pockets. So we had an option in the northwest corridor or the southwest. Northwest was a little bit too expensive for him at the time. And we helped him get something in the southwest corridor. And at the time, I remember his parents frowning, going, mate, what are you doing? And they were asking him to buy this 1-bedroom apartment in Campsie instead, because it's the inner west and don't go into the southwest. And anyway, long story short, I helped him buy a property in a suburb called Gregory Hills. And he got a house and land because we saved the deposit. We saved on stamps because he only had to pay stamps on the land. And he didn't have the whole deposit. So by the time the land wasn't registered as yet, it was 6 months away, he could save up the rest. He got in. Anyway, long story short, I think he paid 600 circa around. And this is now going back, 4 years, 5 years? He's just got a valuation back at 1.1. So he made 500 grand, and that Campsie apartment from 360 is 385. So hello, what did he do with his next deposit? He pulled out the equity and actually bought the home he wanted, because now his income is not $60,000, $70,000. He's got a really, really good, solid business going for himself. And he literally pulled out the equity, $500,000 to get started. So there was a win there. And the reason I could do this is it wasn't because I'm great or any of that. Myself, the broker, the builder, the land, we all were in synergy. So was he. Was part of the entire conversation. We went through the process. I would have loved to have him in the Northwest Corridor. It was just a little bit too close to home. From a budget, we could have put him in that financial risk of him not getting the finance. And he's made $500,000, and I think from a $600,000 purchase, all up, he had to pay $68,000. I negotiated a few discounts, got him a few extras. He never ended up moving in, because at the time, instead of him waiting to get into his dream home, he went down that path. He was lucky enough to live with mum and dad. But if that's not your situation, you could be renting, right? And I see this all the time, Sean. Like, if my kids wanted to go to Trinity or Knox or somewhere else, and I didn't have the money to buy a house in Wahroonga, I would rent a house in Wahroonga for $1,100 a week and live in Wahroonga and buy properties where I can afford to buy.
It's half the because going to school fees.
Absolutely. So during the purchase, when you're looking at contract types, there's no right or wrong. People are scared of off the plan or exist. There's no right or wrong. In this guy's scenario, for him, he had low deposit funds. He needed a 6 or 8 months. We knew that this was not some Bob the Builder. It was a reputed builder. It was reputed land developer. The broker was on board. The finance was on board. In fact, at the time, we were even able to get a subject to finance, which is super rare to do. But because we were in synergy, there was a personal relationship there. We could negotiate something on his behalf. Now, can we do this sort of stuff all the time? Yeah, a different version of it, but we do that for our clients. We go the extra mile to keep them protected. But in the open market, it is very, very hard to put things together. And often people think they need much larger deposits and much larger loans and buy properties that don't serve them. So it's not about the pre-purchasing. It's not the problem with the contract, the real estate agent or the finance guy. The problem is you not understanding what's possible for you and your team not giving you the right information. That's where the challenge comes. What if I don't get a loan? Why haven't you negotiated subject to finance? Or they won't do it. Don't do a deal with them. Like, what do you want me to do? But I really want that house. Then roll the dice. Are you okay? What if there's a value? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much stuff that you have control over that people don't realize. But the problem is most people don't even go down that path. They don't even think that far. They're just stuck on, what if I don't get a tenant? What if this happens? Mate, what if the world ends? I don't know. Like, go figure.
And you know what as well, Kesh, that is typical where we only fear something that we've heard about from other people as well in today's society. So
that's
no
the
one
worst
would
part.
think about what if there's no tenant if they didn't have someone else in their ear saying, what if you don't get another tenant, right? There's that. I've never really seen people losing tenants for a long period of time. I mean, even in a very condensed market, let's use Liverpool as an example. You know, highly populated with people in apartments. I mean, to be fair, yeah, you might have to drop your rent from time to time if you've got people coming in and out, but it doesn't mean that you've got a 6 to 12 month gap with no one in there. We're in Sydney, for example. We are going to be overpopulated in a matter of
I reckon, Mark, the people who actually come up with this stuff are either looking at areas where they know that it's a shit area, but they're just trying to buy the cheapest deal possible. So often people go buy there's no, I'm not judging someone who drives these vehicles. You can't buy a Kia and want Rolls-Royce outcomes, okay? You can't buy a Timex and want an Audemars Piguet outcome, okay? There's a property, and the property will do what it is meant to do, and the property is not going to change, because you can't just sit there and be like, oh, I wanted so much rent, so you should earn it for me, right? It's not a living thing. It's part of the marketplace, and you've made this decision. Often, it's not the property. It is the purchaser who had very different expectations, didn't have the right information, has underestimated or overestimated, and the property is not behaving the way they want, so they get frustrated. So when I bought properties in the aspirational middle ring, I knew from the get-go they're going to have capital growth, and my yields are going to be lower. When I've bought in places where my yields are higher, whether I'm doing Airbnb arbitrage, whether there are NDIS properties, whether they are rental by room, court sharing, or it's just a ghetto suburb where people are so poor they can't afford to buy a house, that they got to pay rent, and the property is dirt cheap, right? I'm not going into these suburbs going, I bought a property for $250,000 and it's not done anything in 10 years. What did you want it to do? People drive $300,000 cars. Are you kidding me? They want Bellevue Hill performance. They want Bellevue Hill performance out of a Claymore property. God bless you. You know what I mean? So it's not the property. The property is going to do what the property is meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what it's meant to do? Have you underestimated or overestimated it? And these are things that are so calculatable, guys. In 2021, we've got data. We as a business, again, this is not a shameless plug. We actually do. We spend over $150,000 a year on just buying data and breaking that. We have a whole acquisitions team that spends 60, 70, 80 hours a week researching the market. Even though I do this every day, I ring up my acquisitions guy and be like, mate, what's happening? Give me the update, because week on week things are changing. And when friends come in, I digress. But if Mark came to me and said, mate, I bought in Box Hill and it was an awesome deal, and I bought it for $700,000 in 2016 or 2017, and today, mate, it's worth 1.3 million. You should buy it too. You have missed that stage, because you bought it at $700,000 and you were okay to get $500 a week rent. Now it's 1.1, but the rent's only gone up to 610.
Yeah.
So your yield was okay when you bought it, so you're giving your experience. The other idiot buys it now and goes, shit, it's negative geared. Like, I'm losing money, man. Like, I'm struggling. I can't hold it any longer. Will it grow? Of course it will. It'll take its time. That instant period, that stage 3 to stage 6 gentrification has happened. The money has moved in. You were too late. So the friend is not doing him a disservice. The friend who's listening is an idiot, because you're listening to historical data. Yeah, Mark made money, bought in 27. Do you understand? Does that make sense? Often it's not the money, it's the person.
Horses for courses.
100%. Now, post-purchase, Sean, what can go wrong? What should I be worried about? And how do I protect myself? As an owner, first, what can go wrong? Or as an investor, what can go wrong? Let's talk about that.
Well, the best thing about being an investor post-purchase is there's not really much that can go wrong, because you've got insurances that pretty much cover you from head to toe. As an investor, what really goes wrong if I lose my job? Should I sell my property and get my deposit back and then keep me afloat? Well, you don't need to, because in any market in Australia, you're never going to have a situation where 12 months there's no tenant. You know why? Because the market, you just have to list your property at what the market is willing to pay. That's it. You know, I've had conversations with really well-educated individuals in the finance space who still don't understand that when I say your property will never be vacant, they don't understand the concept. So markets we're looking at are right now listing for about 500 per week. So I said, worst case, If you don't find a tenant at 500, you just need to list at 480. You will get a tenant. You just need to list at 400. You just need to list at 300. That same $500 a week market is not going to be empty if you listed for 250 a week. Yet still, they want to do their worst case preparations with, zero income for the month. Could I still afford it if there was no money whatsoever? So long story short, as an investor, not much can go wrong.
Sean, just to jump in there again, is when you've got the data on supply and demand, projects in the pipeline, owners versus renters, percentage of owners who already own outright, like you can jump on realestate.com and look at the demand in the area, right? You can literally go and look at, mate, like you tell me ever, if you are listing, you're an owner, you're a tenant, whoever you are, when have you seen properties vacant? For how long have you seen them in a capital city? And why are they vacant? Okay, so when you talk about the city, Sydney went through a crazy vacancy rate because predominantly the city was filled with international students living in Chippendale and Glebe and Surrey Hills, and the vacancy rate shot up to 16%, corrected back to 6% because it is super dense. And with COVID, more and more people didn't want to live in apartments because they were stuck with their bloody housemate, and they go, mate, I'm going to move back with mum and dad. Or people wanted backyards because Auntie Gladys wouldn't let them out. So properties were always rented. Yes, are there periods? And it was a black sheep event. Has it ever happened? No.
But even in a black sheep event, 100%, even in a black sheep event, you're getting a situation where I've asked clients this question and they've gone, yeah, I've seen property vacant for 6 weeks. I said, okay, well, what's the actual story there? Which property was vacant? They go, oh, this house in Schofields was vacant for 6 weeks. I said, why was it vacant for 6 weeks? Well, then I did some digging. I realized the idiot owner decided to list that property for $750 a week when it should have been listed for $650. So obviously it's been vacant for 6 weeks. So
that's an example of owner not understanding that the property is not, just because I list my house for $10 million, no one's going to buy it. Market's price 2.75. Worst case scenario, they'll pay maybe 2. Best case scenario, they'll pay 3.
But I love the technicality of this, right? I love the technicality of this. On the ultra upper end of the market, if your house is at 18 mil and it's not getting enough traction, the only surefire way to make it get a lot of traction is listing it for 25. It's a sneaky trick there for the upper luxury end of the market. And I've actually seen it get pulled off. It's ridiculous because I think sometimes people think, oh, well, it's not as exclusive.
People buying houses at that 100%. People buying houses at that level aren't looking at LVRs and what is going to be my yield. This person's basically said, should I buy the Mona Lisa? Should I buy a 300-foot yacht? Or should I buy myself a house just cause I want something over New Year's? So it's a very different playing game. Now, moving on from here, post-purchase, guys. Post-purchase, sticking to that, let's talk about in a lot of unexperienced owners and investors get caught with this is unplanned repairs when they watch the block. You know, they get really excited. They watch the block. They think they're gonna be flipping this property. And I'll give you a story. This is a scenario. This is true. So someone I know very well, watched the block. Big fan, really talented, tight on cash, no spare money. Okay. Bought this property, realized shit, okay, they estimated the repairs are going to be 50 grand. Anyway, 5 years later, $300,000 spent on the property. And they've, even though the market's moved, they bought it really at a wrong time and paid too much for it. Really underestimated the costs because of the pest and building inspector screwed them on what was there. The repairs were extended through the lockdown. And even though we have had an upswing, they've spent so much that it's not feasible for them to sell it anymore. And now they're struggling to pay the mortgage. So talk about when you don't have excess capital, why unplanned repairs and maintenance can just knock you out of the market forever.
And if you don't have a good, healthy base of assets that are actually doing their own thing with as minimal time, people lose the fact that you actually need ready full-time teams at your disposal to find a deal at a good price, buy it below market value, add improved capital, and flip it at a right time as well. What people don't know is they don't know the movements of the market from from a bar of soap, because you're looking at a situation where everything's based on the news, which is what generally you're 3 to 6 months late to the party, right? On some pieces of data, especially for investment real estate. And people are buying things at wrong times because they know, okay, great, you know what, I have to, so the market itself will be worth 100K. And everyone's got this big misconception, massive misconception. If I spend 20K on a reno, I'm getting 100K uplift on my house. If that's the case, I'm ready to spend $1 million tomorrow on renos and make eight grand.
And that's what they don't understand. So they'll watch some guy do it in Miami, in Beverly Hills. Look, 100%. Like you said, Sean, you might be able to change the kitchen bench on an $18 million property, relist it for $25 million, be interesting, throw a crazy party, get Madonna to sing, and you might flip it. You go into Schofields and spend $1 million on a renovation, period. You're overcapitalized because no one's going to come and spend $2 million in Schofield or $3 million. If they have $3 million, they wouldn't be living there.
Exactly.
So you got to be very, very careful when this comes to this. Now, before we wrap up, the last most important thing that I need people to understand is the most common thing I get is what if my tenant doesn't pay rent on time, or I have a cash flow issue. I only have two things to say. One, we had those issues where some really hardworking people, a core part of the economy, were made redundant when the pandemic hit. Like I said, it's a $9 trillion marketplace, which the residential real estate marketplace, in comparison to $2 trillion at ASX, $1 trillion in commercial, not even that, 900, I don't know, it's close to that, $2 trillion in super. So $5 trillion are all other assets, and $9 trillion is just residential real estate. And this is not government's money, this is not government bond, this is Australian mum and dad money parked over here, okay? And the game, the Australian government understands the game. Every time you buy a property, you are adding to the economy. Every time you buy an investment, the government doesn't have to build another property. They're not going to wipe you out. And there's been a great example. The government is literally printed money, told the banks to pause mortgages. Remember when you could do that? You can still do that, right?
And you can
told tenants, okay, 100%. Listen, don't pay your rent. Listen, landlord, Mr. Landlord, don't pay your mortgage. Let's give it a 6 months break. Let's reconvene. And if it's still an issue, we will go from there. Now, guys, if you're buying a property that you think you can't run the cash flows for, why are you buying it in the first place? Is your fear logical or illogical, or is it just hearsay? Have you actually put pen to paper and run your numbers? Or do you even know what sort of numbers to look for? What is your cash on cash return? What is your pre-tax cash flow? What is your post-tax cash flow? What if you went interest only? Right? What if you there's so many things that you could look at to protect yourself. But yet these same people, Mark and Sean, these same people, it blows my mind, would sign $1 million home loan that they're solely responsible to pay for. At least my investment property, the tenant is paying a portion of it, if not all. With all my property, the tenant's paying for all of it and more.
And the taxes are paying for the rest of it.
100%. So yet these same people will risk they would max themselves out, stretch themselves to get into a home that they're solely liable for, get zero tax benefits. What if you lose your job? What if you can't find another job? Imagine you lose your job, lockdown happens, Auntie Gladys is only paying you $750 a week, your mortgage is $8,000.
Exactly.
And the banks don't want to give you a pause anymore. Now what? At least my other property, there's a higher probability of my tenant paying for it. And that's what I find crazy. These same people who say, "Oh, what if I don't get rent?" What would go commit to $2 million loan that they're solely responsible for? It's not tax effective. They have zero savings. In fact, one partner goes only to work to pay for that. Sometimes it's 1.5 income. In Sydney today, more than 50% of household income just goes into mortgage.
Yeah, which is insane.
Yep.
What are you doing? And then they're living in a suburb that they don't even like.
And something else that they do as well is turn to the share market and think that this is their next best alternative because they see some good returns there, but they are forgetting what also happened back in March last year where shares were down here. Yes, shares are going up and up and up and up. And again, this is not a hate segment on shares, that's for sure.
Smash them.
But it's just where people feel like if they're, let's say, priced out of one thing or don't understand it or don't know how to leverage themselves in a smarter way, they'll say, oh, I've dealt with it all of this week, to be completely transparent with you. A few people that I've had a conversation with, they've said, oh, I'm investigating a new investment strategy. I had the property, I've sold it, and now I'm going down the share market. I say, well, it's almost the flavor of the month at the moment for you, because real estate's done what it needed to do. You maybe did well, you've sold off, but again, these people are still in their say mid to late 30s. They've still got another.
I'm all for the share market. I'm all for the share market. I'm all for the real estate market. I'll tell you something. I was listening to, I shared this with you, Mark, last night. I was listening to a conversation when YouTube had just started. I found this conversation 10 years later. But it was a conversation between Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, and how Warren Buffett was saying, I never bought tech stocks, even though Bill Gates was his best friend. He never bought into Microsoft or Google. He was in the Gillette and Coca-Cola, and Warren Buffett is very successful. So there's no one share. Yeah, you can talk about, oh, you should have bought Amazon, you should have done this, you can comment, and you can have opinions in hindsight. But for Warren Buffett, it was circle of competence, and that's what it comes down to. What is your circle of competence? How well do you understand something? So whether it is shares, whether it's I love properties, I love leverage, I understand this game, I've been rewarded, this is my bread and butter, and I will fight for property till the day I die. Especially in a country like Australia, mate, the ASX is a joke. It is the laziest market on planet Earth, right? It is the laziest market on planet Earth. Look at your own super returns. It's a joke. Super is almost the government bullying you to give a stranger 10, 15, 20, 30, $40,000 a year of your hard-earned money, and you've got no say in it. And most people's super got cut in half. So it's not about shares, it's not about property. What is your circle of competence? What do you really understand? Or you're just going to go buy some, again, I bought Afterpay at $6. I made a lot of money, sold it, put it into property, bought it again at 15, at 133. I haven't sold it. I understood that business. That business was the business of hype. It had no fundamentals to do so. And if you feel differently, let me comments. I'm happy to take on a healthy debate. But it's not about shares or property. The idea here is, what is your circle of competence? What is your financial outcome? If you're someone who really understands shares and you've got a limited deposit, 100% play the game, bring it up. Bring yourself to a position where you can leverage that money, 5x, 10x, 6x, whatever it might be. Take the growth, get the rental income. Instead of paying down a 3% debt, if you're so good at shares, stuff it. Leave it on interest only. Take your spare cash flow, pull up the equity, put it into the shares again. Grow that. That is called number one arbitrage of interest rates. That's what the banks do, right? Give you 0.35% on your money, give your money out to someone at 6, 8, 3, whatever, 18%.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's so good at shares, and if you own your own home, why haven't you used your equity, use the interest arbitrage to play yourself down? Or are we just talking rubbish? Is it another excuse? What is your circle of competence? What are you comfortable with? What are you passionate about? What do you really know? And double down. Because I'll tell you what, you sit on the fence, you get splinters in your ass. Now, before we wrap up, we can never wrap up this show without Sean's rapid fires, buddy. Brother, you fire away before we wrap up tonight. And we will call it a Friday Night Live.
Yeah, tonight was such a fun one. So quick, only 2 questions for tonight's rapid round. Tonight's rapid round robins. All right. Now, this is a fun one. It's about getting the audience to know you both, and I suppose a little bit about myself on a personal side as well. So
I'm shy.
Let's start off with Kesh. Kesh, what is your number 1 favorite scotch of all time? And number 2, There's actually 3 questions for tonight, by the way. My bad. So,
that's so hard.
number 1, what is your favorite scotch of all time, and what are you drinking right now?
So my favorite scotch of all time, every day, is Glenfiddich. Sponsor me if you're watching this on LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever. I would love you forever. I am just actually pouring myself one on a Friday, so that's good. That I like a Macallan. And if I'm having a bad month, I'm okay with a black label. Anything below that, that it doesn't work well for me. I'll say that. So that was my scotch. Sorry, what was your second question? I got very excited with the scotch.
Yeah, no, it was just what were you drinking tonight, and what was your favorite of all time?
So, mate, to be honest, you know what? She's been faithful. So this is what I'm drinking tonight. She's my favorite. Glenn, I love you. And this is my little Friday night treat. It's not every day. I treat myself to this on a Friday for a hard week. And sometimes I'm the idiot on a summer evening or afternoon. Sometimes I'll go, let's just do a Glen. It just flows well.
Excellent. Now that's really awesome. Mark, what about yourself?
Look, I haven't had it for a while, but Remy Martin XO. It's not. I wouldn't call it the Scotch right now that we should be discussing, but yeah, probably one of the favorite drops on a nice warm glass. Little bit of cigar action as well.
Woo! Hello. You're getting excited.
That was that's probably one of my favorite drops. I actually had one many years ago, and I can tell you now I got stung when the bill came out. It was called Paul Girard, and this was an amazing drop, we'll just say, and it had a price tag to match. But that was a good one. And what I'm drinking tonight, I've jumped on the lolly water tonight. Enjoyed it a little bit more. I was having a
I actually don't. I don't. You know what? My favorite thing before cricket, and some people might go crazy because I love to drink beer when I watch the cricket. But every time I got a couple of fireballs, get myself going, and I love that because fireball and beer really work well. But the problem is, it really, you get really hot, and cricket's usually through summer, and I'm regretting that decision every single time, but I just got to do it. Fireball shot, a beer, and then I got to get some chicken wings.
Chicken wings are great. We've got to get KFC to sponsor us next time around.
100%. Glenn, again, if you're watching, please, love you. Mark, I reckon we got to pressure Sean to get us a rooftop office. We're done. No more in the cabin. Everyone's been in lockdown. We need a penthouse office. On Friday Night Lives can be in the rooftop, and maybe we can get some cigars.
I think we're going to do our first episode out of lockdown. You've convinced me now. I think our first episode out of lockdown will be with cigars, 100%.
Mate, I love it.
Good. Glenn sounds great. I'm enjoying a beautiful cup of, in a baby's cup of water here.
That is so cute.
It looks like a baby's cup because I love it.
Does it have a little? Does it have a little?
But it's actually a pretty big sized cup. It's just when I hold it, it just gets dwarfed in my hand. Mark and I love going to grab piccolos at the local cafe before lockdown because when I grab that, it just looks like a giant jack from the beanstalk holding.
Sean, you should not be drinking piccolos. I'm pretty sure the coffee maker would look at you like this, go like, mate, that piccolo is going to do nothing for you. For our viewers who've never met Sean in person, so don't get fooled by the camera. He's not some little guy in a chair. Sean's a tower. Sean's parallel career could have been in the WWE taking down some big boys there. He's professionally trained to fight, but he is a gentle giant. Now we're just blabbering on. Gentlemen, if I have your permission, can we wrap this up tonight?
Yes, let's go for it.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for watching another episode at Friday Night Live. Mark, Sean, thank you again. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our conversation. Leave us your feedback in the comments. Good, bad, or ugly. We want to know if it was valuable. Type in what you really liked about it. Share it with your friends. Like this, subscribe, and show us some love. It really supports us. Thank you for watching again. And again, remember, if you're watching this on replay, type replay. If you're watching this live, type in live. And we're going to give something really, really special to everyone who watches live. You do it 3 times, and I'll get Sean to give you something Pretty good. Until next time, thank you very much. Stay safe, and we hope to see you next week. Bye for now. And now we're going to do the awkward